I'm Sam,
And this is Gabe.
and this is Coaster Wars.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Coaster Wars podcast, where today we are talking about a very enjoyable, a very fun trip that we had taken on a very surprise note. Once again, if there's anything we're consistent at, it's inconsistency.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is a very random surprise trip that we decided to take to Six Flags St. Louis and Holiday World. They were two parks that were originally going to be included on our Coaster's 2025 Extravaganza, and due to rearranging to get to Six Flags America, they were then taken off our list. So, as a very last minute, literally, we were sitting down to record last week's episode and we booked the hotels for this trip. I guess we were just itching to get on some coasters, and some good ones did we get on, because holy crap.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Why don't we just dive right into this? So, Six Flags St. Louis, we're just out there. That was our first day of this. Basically, for you, it was a 3-day trip. For me, it'll end up being a 4-day trip
Yep.
because I also plan on getting a ride on the rack tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm so jealous.
Unfortunately, that'll be a solo run for me. But let's start with Six Flags St. Louis. Now, this park has been on my list for a while, but it's been one of those parks where, for me at least, I knew about it. There's a couple coasters there that I really, really want to ride, but that was about it. It wasn't something that I felt like I needed to get to. However, with the merger with Cedar Fair and Six Flags and some of the coasters they removed in the last off season, there was one in particular I was concerned about that we'll be talking about, and that is Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast. I feel like that's a coaster in the next couple years, if they are still trying to cut costs in the massive chain that is now the Six Flags Entertainment Corporation. That could be one of the coasters potentially on the chopping block just due to maintenance cost and how much it costs to run it. It is in a kind of a prime spot in the park too. However, it's a very weird plot of land. I don't know what they could do with it if they did take it out. But I felt like I wanted to get to Six Flags St. Louis and ride this coaster. And that's kind of how this whole trip came to be. That and obviously Holiday World, there's a couple coasters there that have been on my list for a very long time. So we just kind of lumped these two parks together and we made a little mini trip out of it.
Oh yeah, with cheese and crackers, I cannot talk. Mr. Freeze the Reverse Blast. If you want to hear about some of the downfalls of a ride like this, go ahead and check out our episode 2 of season 2 here. We talked about a really similar ride called Batman and Robin the Chiller that is no longer there. So we were very concerned for this ride. I'm so glad we got on it though, because it was so much fun. And
100%, absolutely.
Yeah. But Gabe's very right that it does worry us in the future that it will be taking out just because of the maintenance cost and just the sheer energy draw and stuff like that to run a ride like this.
Yeah, and then we do have to address the unfortunate casualty of this trip. So the other coaster that is at Six Flags St. Louis that I really, really was excited to ride was the Boss. Unfortunately, they were doing some track work the day we were at the park, and it was closed all day with no warning at all. Good job, Six Flags. You're doing great.
Right.
No, honestly, it seems like it might have been a little bit of an emergency down day for them, but they closed the Boss all day, and we could see that there was workers walking up and down a very particular section of track. So there was obviously a glaring issue that needed to be addressed. It's nice to see that at least they are taking precautions to fix stuff when it is needed. It was just very unfortunate. However, if you're going to be a roller coaster enthusiast and you plan on making trips every once in a great while, you will be disappointed. And that really was our disappointment of the trip.
It really was.
Honestly, if you're saying that's the disappointment, that you just didn't get to ride something, I think you're doing pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, especially because the Boss is a wooden roller coaster, and so that was kind of going to be the big Woody at Six Flags St. Louis. And so going to Holiday World, we got 3 top tier Woodies, so we're kind of not that mad about it. So
Yeah, absolutely. It just gives us an excuse to head back to Six Flags St. Louis in the future. Like you said, maybe a silver dollar Six Flags St. Louis trip.
Yeah,
Maybe we could do
maybe.
all three.
Oh,
I'd
that would
definitely
be
go back
good.
to Holiday World. That's for sure.
Yes, 100%. Oh my
So
gosh.
with that, dive right into Six Flags St. Louis. Let's just do a quick overview of the park and just talk about the general things that we noticed, and then we can dive into their top three for sure.
Okay.
After that, we'll kind of see where we're at for time. And once we start getting closer to a half an hour, that's when we'll have to transition into the Holiday World side of it. But so the biggest thing I noticed right away about Six Flags St. Louis is this still feels like a very much a Six Flags park. Now I know when we did our Six Flags Great America tour, we noticed that there was some more Cedar Fair-esque things, just stuff getting repainted, updated, water fountains everywhere,
Hmm.
just clean and just Cedar Fairy. The food was better, just everything just seemed to be a little bit more improved upon. The guest experience was. However, when we got to Six Flags St. Louis, it was very apparent that they haven't touched this park at all.
Hmm.
And I know, obviously, there's a whole bunch of parks in the chain that they have to get to. Obviously, Great America is probably top three, top four
Yeah.
in their chain, where Six Flags St. Louis definitely is not. That being said, I was slightly disappointed. However, for a Six Flags esque park, I still felt like it was very, very clean, very, very
Yeah.
organized. It was just lacking, like nothing had been repainted in years. The water bubbler situation was they were there, but they like didn't have the water bottle filling stations like at
Yeah.
that they were putting in at Great America. They did have a lot of like restrooms and stuff, but they were obviously older, outdated. Just everything felt more old and just needed to be a little bit spruced up a bit. You get what I'm saying? Just like I said, it
Absolutely.
felt like I was going back to a normal Six Flags park. So,
Yes.
and maybe that's just what we'll see as a normalization is that the smaller parks are going to be maybe forgotten a little bit on the investment side. That being said, it just could be a down year for them. Next year maybe they'll go through and redo this park as well and make it more Cedar Fair esque. But it was a slight disappointment there. That being said, I thought the food was really good.
Yeah,
That was the one thing.
actually.
I don't know. I got like these. I ordered a spicy chicken tender meal, and they just took breaded chicken tenders, like plain ones or whatever, and then like put a big sauce over them. It was really good actually, though. It was very spicy. Fair warning.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's the one thing that you always dread kind of when you go to the theme park in general. And we like to say that smaller parks are able to invest a little bit more time. And actually, between the two, Holiday World and Six Flags, we actually thought the Six Flags
Yeah,
park had better food this
like
time. So,
legitimately. Now, obviously, we just kind of checked out basically a food stand at Holiday World, not like one of the
yeah,
actual restaurants. That might have been the issue there. But even at Six Flags St. Louis, oh no, that was an actual sit down restaurant we went into,
it
wasn't
was.
it?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was a
So that
bar
could
and
have been the
grill.
difference. That being said, I still felt like the food was really good. I really enjoyed myself. We'll
Agreed.
touch on a few more things at Holiday World though later on
Yeah.
that we need to bring up in this podcast.
Yes.
That being said, everything else, the ride ops were good. The weather was very, very warm. I will say that,
Yes.
but that's just
It's Missouri.
Missouri in the summer.
Yep.
But for the most part, I felt very comfortable at this park, and I felt like it was still, even though it was Six Flag esque, it seemed like a very good Six Flag esque theme park, in my opinion. The biggest thing that really threw us off was the whole boss being closed thing, and
Yeah.
I think it would have been one thing if we knew ahead of time, or even if the day we got there they had a big sign up front saying the boss is not open. But like even in their app it was saying it was open. Then we walked all the way over there and it was
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh.
Well, and of course, at that point, so what happened was is we went to ride a ride called American Thunder that's like right at the beginning of the park. And once we got up on the lift hill for that ride, we were looking at the boss and then we saw the workers up there. So then our thought of course was like, well maybe they're fixing something and it'll be open for the second half of the day or something. And then of course we ended up asking one of the other workers and they're like, nope, it's going to be closed all day long and it's not going to be open. They're working on some of the track. So, like Gabe said, any kind of, I mean, even a sign by the entrance, because that was the other thing is you like walked all the way in the entrance, and then the only thing indicating that it was closed was just like the normal chain across the entrance.
Yeah, the
Uh,
one that says it's temporarily unavailable instead of
yeah.
putting a sign out saying like,
Hey,
"Hey, the boss is going to be closed all day today."
yeah.
Just so we didn't like go back over there and check, like, because if we went to ask anybody, or if the people we asked didn't have an answer for us, we would have been going over there and checking throughout the day to see if it would open,
Oh, yeah.
assuming it's going to open at some point.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
just even just on the app saying closed for today would have been better than what we got. Like I said, that's just, I feel like that's a little unacceptable. I'm probably blowing it out of proportion, but just something on the app, or like even the day off, it's fine. I get it. You have to work on coasters. I get it. It's part of being enthusiast. Like I said, it's just
Yep.
some kind of communication there would have been better than just absolutely nothing, which is what we got. So,
Exactly. I don't think it's blowing it too out of proportion. Like you said, anything would have been better than the nothing that we got. So
yeah. That being said, why don't we talk about the top three? I feel like we'll do that for both parks. We'll talk about the top three. Well, Holiday World will probably end up talking about all of them, but that's
yeah,
just.
let's be honest.
Anyway, so Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast, I thought we both agreed was the best coaster. So you are looking
100%.
at a Premier Rides shuttle launch coaster. This coaster reaches a top height of 218 feet and a top launch speed of 70 miles per hour, as well as a second booster launch on the vertical spike. Sam, what did you think of this roller coaster?
This thing is absolutely insane for absolutely no reason. But it is from a roller coaster enthusiast standpoint about knowing how these rides have to be mechanically engineered. This thing was so cool. And one of the things I want to talk about is the switch track in the loading station so that you can
Yeah, that was
have to, yeah.
a very neat feature of this roller coaster.
So basically, because this is a launch track and they launch you out of the station, they have a switch track so that they can run and load two trains at the same time. And so basically, they have to move one train over and launch it while loading the other train. And then they basically have to move the one that just ran back over to load it and then move the other one over so it can launch. And it just like, I could have sat there all day and just watched that thing switch tracks because it was so cool. And then it's very funky being on a roller coaster and then just having it move directly horizontally. Weird feeling. And then the other thing we have to talk about with this ride is just being in the back row and being launched up that vertical spike and then having that little boost. You just hang there for so long and you're just staring at the ground before it just lets you go again. It is very disorientating.
Oh, for sure. I think the biggest thing that I wanted to mention right away is a lot of the times these shuttle coasters feel incomplete. They feel like
Hmm.
they're missing an element or something of that nature, or they just feel
Yeah.
really, really short. Especially like the boomerang coasters from
Mm.
Vekoma. I always
Yeah.
feel like they're just missing another element. But this coaster felt very complete because the experiences forward and backwards were different. And the reason that they are different is obviously when you're coming out of the launch, top the
Top hat?
top hat, the inverted top hat, you're going to have a lot more speed entering that element. And then when you get to the overbank curve, you're going to be going a little bit slower. And then you go up the vertical spike. But because of that second launch, where it boosts you just that little bit higher up that vertical spike, when you come back through, you're actually going to be going quite a bit faster through the overbank, and you're quite a bit slower through the inverted top hat, which makes this three element roller coaster really feel like a five element roller coaster. And it's just a very unique feeling going backwards through the entire layout first. And I think I preferred that
Oh,
because I
yeah.
feel like when you go through a layout facing forward and then backwards second, you kind of already know what's going to happen to you. You understand what the layout is. Even the first time you ride it, you know that that backwards section, you kind of know what's coming. Where
Yeah.
when you get launched backwards first and go through the entire layout backwards, you have absolutely no clue. Even if you look at the roller coaster, you still don't know the timing and how everything feels. So then that really gets that disorientation up just a little bit more for me. That being said, this roller coaster was a ride. I mean, just the going up the top hat, you get the G-force transition into ejector airtime, transition back into G-force, transition into zero G, and then you go back into positive G's. It's just a crazy that there's like 5 transitions just in that inverted top hat alone that you
Yeah.
feel all individually. And I think that's what makes this roller coaster so good is it still feels like a complete, fully finished experience, even though it is just a shuttle coaster.
Yes. I think the other thing that really sings on this ride is the fact that you are launched backwards at 70 miles per hour in 3.8 seconds because the launch on this thing is pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah, it is a very, very, very punchy launch. And that's the other thing, too. When you get launched backwards, you don't have the head restraint in like the backrest of
Yeah.
like a normal launch coaster. You actually get pushed into the restraint that holds you in. And that
Mhm.
is just a strange feeling. But I still think the best moment on this roller coaster is on the top hat. When you are facing directly towards the ground and you get launched up towards the top of the spike, and you
Mhm.
literally get like, as you get launched, same thing, you get pressed into the restraint instead of the back of the coaster. And it's
Yeah.
just a very, very, very strange feeling. There's really nothing else I've experienced yet that feels like Mr. Freeze. I think
Mhm.
that's why it's the best coaster at St. Louis because of how unique it really is. And then it's just a very forceful, very aggressive ride experience, which me and you both seem to love. So,
Yes. This thing was awesome. It was so much fun and we rode it quite a few times while we
oh
were there.
yeah.
So, the other
Um,
thing I do want to mention real quick is a lot of it was really on point at this park, but the theming for Mr. Freeze was probably the best.
oh yes.
So, I just the whole entrance, the whole ice cream shop, everything was chef's kiss on top, cherry on top for this roller coaster. It was a lot of fun.
That being said, there's a lot of different ways we could go with the number 2 and the number 3. Me personally, I feel like the boss would slide in at number 2 if we got to ride it. However, do we both agree that we felt American Thunder was kind of the second best ride that we experienced at least?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll talk about American Thunder. Now, this is a GCI Woody, and it was constructed in 2008. It is a top height of 82 feet and a top speed of 48 miles per hour. First impressions, this is the first roller coaster we rode at
Mhm.
Six Flags St. Louis. And even the first impression we got of this, before it was warmed up and everything, was it was a very, very fun, very, very GCI-esque roller coaster.
Yeah.
If anybody's ridden a GCI ever, they have a very unique way of profiling their track and a very unique way of kind of, they're not a sustained airtime wooden roller coaster.
No.
They're usually really good laterals, pops of ejector here and there, and maybe a couple moments of sustained floater airtime. And that's exactly what this roller coaster was. We both kind of agreed, though, it was one of the weaker GCIs that we've been on. Obviously, Mystic Timbers
Is
and Thunderhead are two of them that pop out in our mind. And this kind
yeah.
of was like the next step down from those two. That being said, those are both considered, top 20, top 30
Yeah.
roller coasters.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be fair to compare those two coasters to this. When you compare this to the general Woodies that we have been on, it's kind of like a mid tier. I felt like it was a
Yeah.
mid tier Woody. But that being said, we thought it was one of the better rides at the park, not including the boss. So
Yeah.
that's the asterisk you put on this ranking. That being said, we also both really, really enjoy Woody roller coasters,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why we put it a little bit higher than other people would. But what did you think about this roller coaster?
I think what's really funny, not funny, what's fun about this coaster is you technically speaking could see the entire thing when you walk up to this coaster. It's got a really small footprint because it's all kind of like twisted in and on itself. And basically, when you go into the queue line, it kind of the station is basically at the center of this ball of just wood. So you can see the whole thing and it comes screaming so close to you as you're waiting in line. So it was just like watching it fly by us all the time. And it's like, I know 82 feet doesn't sound like a lot, but where you see the footprint of this roller coaster, the lift hill is a good sized lift hill. And I remember the drop being decent on this thing. And then just because they packed so much track into this tiny little space, like Gabe said, with their unique profiling and stuff, you got so many laterals and stuff. And then, even though this was our first ride of the day and our first ride on it was very good, it definitely is better once it warms up. I do remember we went back and rewrote it and we're like, oh, holy cow, it made it even better. And I'm thinking of, it's not really a quad down, but it's like a couple little airtime hills that were right in a row. And the first time we rode it, they gave us a little bit of airtime and we're like, oh, they're pretty good. And then the second time we rode it, we actually got a little bit of ejector on them because we were flying through so fast, and they were really good. So it was
Yeah, this roller coaster for me at least, they size the elements very very well. What I mean by
mhm.
that is there's a there's a nuance to how you size each element back to back to back to make a roller coaster feel and flow and pace well. And I think that's
Mhm.
one of the things GCI is very very good at, and that's something they definitely showed out on this roller coaster is that the pacing. See, sometimes if a coaster is paced too fast, I'd say max force as an example, you don't get to fully experience each element, and you're kind of just it's over with and you're like, holy cow, what just happened? And I don't like asking that at the end of a roller coaster, what just happened? I like to
Yep.
know what happened to me, you know what I'm saying? But then
Yeah.
also, if you get a coaster that is paced too slow, Mean Streak was a very good example of this,
Mhm.
where each element is too drawn out and too exemplified. It just makes the coaster kind of fall apart and you're just bored. You're just bored in between each element, what the coaster's supposed to do to you, and you're not entertained. Where American Thunder is very, very well in that middle zone where it's like some elements are quick, some elements are more drawn out, and they put them together in a certain way. They put that puzzle piece together in a certain way. It just makes the coaster flow from start to finish. And I think that's what I really appreciate about GCI engineering and how they
Mhm.
design their coasters. But I felt like in American Thunder, there's one of the best paced coasters I've ever ridden. I think that's what makes it a little bit better for me, at least, is that pacing is so well done. And it's just like the coaster flows from start to finish. It just flows together well and it feels like a complete ride experience and
Mhm.
just feels like they planned it out better than some other coasters we have ridden. That is for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
So, that being said, I really do want to go back and ride the boss. I'm going to be stuck on that this whole episode.
Oh, I can, yeah, we both are, honestly. We could see it from literally every single ride in the park, and it just made the, like, I don't know, ride envy so hard in us because
Oh,
we're
for
just like,
sure.
we know it's gonna be so good. We can see it, which makes it worse.
All right, so we got time to talk about, I think, one more coaster here. Batman the Ride, I think we both agreed was the number three. However, I think we can skip that. We've talked enough about Batman the Ride
And Batman
on
clones.
the Batman clones. So I think if you want to listen to that, go to our Great America episode. I think we even
Yep.
did a Battles episode on it. We've done several episodes on that roller coaster. Next up, we have, I probably would go with Pandemonium. I've no seriously because okay, so they have Ninja, which is let's just go through the rest of these coasters quick. They
Yeah.
have a Vekoma Boomerang, an old one. They have Ninja, which is an arrow looper slash kind of a mega looper, kind of not. They have the River King Mine Train, which is just an arrow mine train. They
Yep.
have Screaming Eagle. Now I do. We'll have to touch on this maybe a little bit at the end. That's the third wooden coaster at this park. It is a Philadelphia toboggan coaster. It is
Oh my
old. It
god.
is incredibly rough. We only rode it once. for us to say a roller coaster is rough, it is bad. It is
It was
bad.
so bad. It's enough that like me and Gabe like a certain amount of roughness, and even
Yes.
then we'll put up with even more roughness if it's a good coaster. This coaster was so rough that not even me and Gabe would tolerate another ride on it.
Which
It
is
was bad.
unfortunate because it really did have a pretty decent layout for being built in the 76.
Yeah.
It was just so unbearably rough that we couldn't justify getting on this coaster a second time
Oh my
to
god, no.
experience the halfway decent layout that it has.
Yes.
And then the last coaster that we did ride would be the Rookie Racer, the the Vekoma family coaster. It was not a lot to talk about. We'll just leave it
Nah,
at
not
that. It was
really.
fun. We rode it. We got credit, but yeah.
It went to
So
the
that
right,
being
it went to the
said,
left, and it was fun.
Pandemonium would be kind of the next coaster we'd be talking about on this list. Now, it will be number 4 behind Batman, but obviously we're not going to talk about Batman. This is a Gerstlauer spinning coaster with a top height of 48 feet and a top speed of 31 miles per hour. Now, the biggest drop is only 27 feet. Now, spinning coasters for me are always been a meh category of roller
Yeah.
coaster. I do enjoy these Pandemonium ones over like a spinning Wild Mouse because there is a little
Yes.
bit more to them. That being said, they're always just kind of a credit that we get and we move on. But we actually rode this like 3 times.
Yeah.
Like, it was actually a very well done spinning coaster. And then it actually had a few really good moments of G-forces, one really good airtime moment, and it
Mhm.
actually spun, which
Yes.
sometimes spinning coasters don't spin, which is probably the most frustrating thing about them.
Yes.
Both of our rides, we got spinning roller coasters. I'll let you take it away for this one because you really enjoyed this and actually
Oh my
called for the
gosh.
second ride. So,
I did. When we were kind of getting to the end of the day, and Gabe's like, "All right, we've ridden everything at least once. Is there anything you want to reride?" And I was like, "I kind of want to reride Pandemonium because it was fun." So, like Gabe said, this is a Gerstlauer spinning coaster. It stands at a height of 48 feet. That drop is just a measly 27, and that speed is 31 miles per hour. But like Gabe said, it was actually a halfway decent one. When you drop off that initial hill, there's a good little swoop around that got you some good G's. And there was one airtime hill that you actually like pop up and over. And it the other thing too is because of the way St. Louis, Six Flags St. Louis is situated, it's actually on like the side of a hill. And so from the picture, from what I'm seeing of Pandemonium, this like airtime hill drops down below grade almost, giving it a little bit more room to give you a little bit more air. And yeah, this thing cooks pretty well. The other thing you have to think about too is that it's just one single car that fits 4 people. So it just it was so much fun. I got off laughing every single time, especially the first time. Our first time was the
oh,
best ride on it
absolutely, yeah.
because we must have just hit the first like helix just absolutely perfectly because it really got us spinning, and it was honestly just so much fun. This is one of those coasters that you just like get off laughing and you have a lot of fun on, and you don't mind maybe riding a second time a little later in the day once you've recouped a little bit because that spinning does take it out of you a little bit.
Oh,
But
for sure.
yeah, we both had a lot of fun riding this roller
It's
coaster.
it was definitely one of the better spinning Gerstlauers that I've been on, at
Mhm.
least. I don't see the part that's kind of scracking my brain. The one that sticks out to me is the one I rode in Fiesta, Texas, and I'm trying to remember if they're the same layout or not. And I'm
Oh,
pretty
okay.
sure most of these are similar, but I don't
Yeah.
remember the airtime hill at the one at Fiesta, Texas. That's what's throwing me off. So I
Okay.
could be wrong on that, but maybe this one was just that good that I remember it, and the other one was that bad that I don't.
Yeah.
So, but in my opinion, it is one of the more enjoyable Gerstlauer spinners that I've been on. Between I think I've
Okay.
been on 3 of them now, 3 or 4 of them,
Okay.
and like
Awesome.
they're all very similar, I think, but this one's
Okay.
probably the best. So. That being
Awesome.
said, we are at our 30-minute mark. Let's just kind of wrap our opinion up of Six Flags St. Louis. Unfortunately, I think at the end of the day, we're both a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed, but it kind of met expectations or didn't really blow us out of the water in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Obviously, the one disappointment was the boss. touch on that one more time.
Yep.
But other than that, I felt like this park really, really met expectations. And then I feel like, I guess you could say, Mr. Freeze kind of exceeded the expectations a little bit because
Yeah.
in my mind it was still just a shuttle coaster, but this is definitely not just any shuttle coaster. So
No.
other than that, everything else kind of met expectations, and the park itself, I feel like, was right where everybody puts it at. Hopefully, maybe we can get on the boss. Maybe that'll kind of really blow us out of the water and go, holy cow, this park's like a must-visit location. But as of
Yeah.
right now, it's kind of one of those parks where if you're passing through, or if it's on your way to a Holiday World or a Silver Dollar City, or you're just bored and want to go driving for a little while and want to go down to this park, go ahead, go visit it. We're not going to tell you not to. We're just not going to
Exactly.
tell you have to.
Exactly. I want to point this out before we move on really quick. One thing is, it isn't actually in a very beautiful area of Missouri. So
Oh,
maybe
absolutely.
if
I
you're
will
like,
give you, yeah.
yeah, if you're ever down there like taking a vacation, maybe just take one day and go to the park or something. And the second thing is, we did manage to end up at the park on a Tuesday during the week. And I don't know if it's because it's early in the season, but there were like no lines at all. We
Oh,
practically
no.
walked on everything.
Yeah, for
So that
sure.
was a plus.
But yeah, it's kind of one of those parks where if you're visiting St. Louis for another reason, then you can kind of
Yeah.
dip down to the park.
Pop on over.
Then it's worth it.
Yeah.
But
All right, let's move on to Holiday
yes,
World, which
Holiday World, which okay, what is how do I put this? What is wrong with the rest of the amusement parks in America? They need to go to Holiday World. They need to visit Holiday World, and they need to jot some shit down because
yes. Oh my gosh.
the two things I want to point out right away is, so when I bought my ticket, which was it 59 if you buy it online? I think
Well,
it was like 60 some, wasn't it? Or 50
well,
after taxes and everything, it was like 59 or something like that.
mine was
After fees.
$51.99 before taxes.
Okay, see, mine was probably like 59 then after the fees. Anyway, I was like, oh, that's a kind of a little bit pricey for a park that's in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. That
Mhm.
being said, this is one of the best parks in the U.S., and I'm not. It's got 5 coasters, and I'm not over exaggerating that statement.
No.
Um,
Not at all.
and that's my point. Is the two things we noticed right away was the free sunscreen and the free soft drinks. Now, I had no idea this was, or clue. I had no clue this was even a thing. Like,
Yeah.
what amusement park would give you free soft drinks for the whole day you're at the park? Like, that's not a thing. Like, normally you have to pay like $30 for one of those little tiny freaking drink things that you could refill for free for a season, and then after that it costs you $1. It's like, it was just one of those things that was just such a nice touch. It was just a nice thing to go to this amusement park, and all these drink stations had soda, Gatorade, water. Like, you basically went through your entire day and you didn't have to worry about what to drink.
Yeah.
Like, it's just mind blowing to me that this is even a concept at an amusement park, that you can go into it and go, yeah, I don't have to worry about bringing an empty water bottle in, and I can fill up at the one refill station in the entire amusement park. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Which
And
it sounds like Gabe's exaggerating, but I kid you not, at Six Flags St. Louis, there were bubblers, but there was only one bubbler that I saw the entire time that had a water bottle refill thingy
yeah,
on
so
it.
even if you just wanted to drink straight water, you had to stop at a bubbler every time.
Yep.
Or if you were in line and you were thirsty, well, you're out of luck because you didn't want to pay a shoot ton of money for a drink cup, you didn't want soda because it's 90 degrees out. Who wants soda when it's 90 degrees out?
Exactly.
And I just want some water, but then I can't carry any water with me unless I go all the way to the front of the park where the one water bottle fill station is. Even if it's just water access. Like, that's one thing we noticed right away at Six Flags Great America that was an improvement, was just the water access. Not necessarily the soft drink. I get it. It's a business at the end of the day that you got to run. But, like, just the access for water would be a nice touch at some of these parks. But Holiday World obviously blows it out of the water with the free soft drinks. That was just, and they're everywhere. It's not like it's just one soft drink station at the top of the park. It's like every corner you go around, there's one. And
That would be your
Again,
next concern with these like free drink
yeah.
stations is them then bottlenecking, but it was like no,
Hmm.
they would have 2 or 3 machines at every single one of these what they called like oases, and like we never had to wait. We walked up
No.
and got our sodas every
And
single time.
even when the places where you go where you had to pay food, they had a drink station there where you could get some
Yep,
soft drinks.
that too.
Like I just, it's one of those things. Like you said, on the surface, it sounds very simple, but it's like it's just a very nice, thoughtful touch. Just the family orientation of this park and the way the signage was addressed. Like even like the line cutting signs were very kind of like, "Hey, don't line cut." It was not like, hey, if you line cut, you're going to be thrown out of the park or what. And it probably did say that at some point, but it was more just friendly and like they had a sign that said acceptable hand gestures. So it wasn't just like no hand gestures in the cameras. It was like here's some acceptable hand gestures you can do, like a peace
Yeah.
sign or a thumbs up. And it just felt positive and family
Yes.
oriented, and you can tell why this park is successful even though it's in the middle of nowhere, because they
Yes.
focus on their guests a little bit more than just the bottom dollar,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day the bottom dollar will come if you focus on your guests. They've proved this.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. I just a side note right here. I don't. So I'm currently working in Louisville, which of course is where Kentucky Kingdom is situated. And I don't know how many people actually say they like Holiday World better and will drive the hour and a half to go to Holiday World because they like it better than the Kentucky Kingdom.
that's not a knock on Kentucky Kingdom. Obviously, they've been
No.
bought and sold and bought and sold, and that's a whole nother situation. But that being said, Holiday World is proving a point because they are a very guest oriented park. They care about their families. They're a family owned park. Even just from the like ride ops,
Oh
90% of the ride ops we dealt with were very positive, very cheery, in a good mood, happy to be at work, and
yes,
it's just the small little things like that for a park goer like us where we go to all these different parks.
yes.
Um,
You really notice the difference.
Absolutely. You do notice the difference. And that's why I'm saying some of these big chains need to jot some of this stuff down and go, maybe we should look at this a little differently.
Yeah.
That being said, the roller coasters, they ain't half bad either.
We were so absolutely blown out of the water.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
We went to Holiday World for the voyage because that is what Holiday World is known for. But let me tell you, they're like the legend also needs to be talked about, but the Raven was really good too. And Thunderbird was halfway decent as well. And to be honest, we rode Good Gravy as well, which like is a really well done family coaster. So,
Yeah, just the theming, the amount of
oh,
theming they put into Good Gravy for a family roller coaster is insane.
I'm
That
pretty
being
sure the coaster itself probably cost a couple million. The theming itself probably also cost a couple million.
Yeah,
So,
right. The theming was more than the coaster itself.
honesty.
That being said, though, let's kind of start from the top and work our way down. If we have time, we can make it to the other coasters. But let's talk about the voyage, man.
Oh,
Oh, best
holy.
coaster of the trip by
Yes.
far. Not even close. We're still debating its location in the top 15 that we both have. That being
Oh
said,
my
it's probably going to
gosh.
be top five. Like
Yep.
easily a top
Easily.
five roller coaster experience. Now, this is a gravity group wooden roller coaster with a top height of 159 feet and a top speed of 67 miles per hour. That being said, the biggest statistic of this roller coaster is the 6,442 feet of track with only one lift hill. Obviously, the Beast has two,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, one of those lift hills has got to be like 1,000 feet, right?
Literally, actually.
So I think it's kind of this is kind of like the Beast grew up, started working out, and then this is what you get.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
What so to get into what this ride is obviously that first drop is absolutely insane. And then it's like it's got two back-to-back airtime hills that are literally the first one says it's 107 feet and the second one says it's 100 feet. And so the first section of this ride is really that floater airtime. Although on the second one, it might be a little bit ejector in the last row because you're yanked over the top of it so freaking fast. But it's straight airtime, and it was very funny when me and Gabe rode this for the first time. It was a little bit early in the day. I hadn't quite warmed up, but like, don't knock it. It's the voyage. But so we went over those couple first airtime hills, and Gabe was like, I was kind of like, this is the voyage? Like, what what is this? And then you like come around the first turnaround, and then you dive into that first tunnel, and then you hit the back section of this ride, basically, that's just turn after turn after turn after lateral after tunnel after another turn, and it's just like, holy but Jesus, it just smacks you in the face with the amount of forces this thing pulls. Oh my god, it was so good. It was
Yeah,
so good.
there's really, I would say there's almost 4 sections to this roller coaster. Would you say 4? I'd say 3, 3.5. We'll go with 3.5.
Okay.
And the first section is the going out. So that is the
Yes.
first drop, the first couple of airtime hills, and the final tunnel before you enter into what I would call the second section. What the second
Yes.
section is, we're going to call it the back half of the roller coaster, or the backwoods section, whatever you want to call it. It's the back twister section, where it
Yeah.
kind of dives down and twists around and has some really cool turns and stuff and some really interesting banking.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have what I would call the third section, which is the return trip, which would start at the mid course and go all the way to just
Yeah.
before you go underneath. I think if you technically go next to the station, and then
Yep.
your finale would be that airtime hill going down, diving next to the station, the little bit of the twister it does at the very front of the coaster, and then into the final breaks would be your 3.5 sections, we'll call it.
Yeah.
That being said, all parts of this roller coaster have a very different feel to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the first half of the first section of the roller coaster is very big, very drawn out, very large, sustained elements, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 very large camelback floater airtime hills that are very, very good. Like Sam said, our first ride, we were kind of like, really? This is it? But then as this coaster warmed up throughout the day and got fuller trains and everything, we were like, holy cow, this is the voyage. Wait, found
Yep.
it. It's right here.
Yeah.
That being said, so the first section is the very large and drawn out elements. The second section would be, I would call the twister section, or how do I explain it? I'm thinking.
It's really hard to explain.
I know, it is. This is a very unique coaster. Like, so what do you call the first section? The floater airtime El Toro section, right?
Yep.
The floater version of the El Toro camelbacks.
Yes.
Then you have the second section we're gonna call the American Thunder section. So very, very, I mean, kind of the similar style where you have like twisted airtime hills where you get laterals, airtimes, G-forces, airtime, laterals, kind of that repetitive back-to-back section, right? And then the third section and the 3.5 section we're going to call the Mystic Timbers section.
Yeah.
Because Mystic Timbers is an out and back coaster that is very, very similar to how this section of the coaster runs. The biggest difference is the build-up. So, like, most coasters, the back half of the roller coaster is where you really start to die out, right?
Yep.
This coaster doesn't die out. It grows as you go back down, because the way this is built is it's built on a hill. It's built on basically the side of a hill, right? And now if you're picturing this coaster, the lift hill and the first drop are at the very bottom of the hill, the station, lift hill, and everything, right? So basically, as you are climbing this hill, you're getting closer and closer to the ground, right? Then you go through that American Thunder back section of the roller coaster, and you climb up into the mid-course brake run, and you're just barely creeping up over that last hill before you hit the mid-course. But the thing is you're at the top of the ground hill that you just climbed.
Yep.
On the first section of the roller coaster. So then as you're heading back towards the station, the grade that this coaster is built on is actually going down. You're losing height. And this coaster utilizes that very, very well. So as you're going back towards the station, you're actually speeding up. You're getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And by the time you get to the bottom, you're just flying and you have so much momentum, which is probably what the craziest thing about this roller coaster is. At the end is probably when you're going the fastest because
Honestly.
you went down that massive grade you climbed in the first part of the coaster. And it's
Yes.
just the way they designed this thing to only have one lift hill and to only really trick you into thinking this coaster's over and you're just hitting the mid course
Yes.
is just very, very well done. This coaster is so. There's nothing else that I've experienced wooden coaster wise that feels this long. By the time the
Mm-mm.
coaster feel like it's supposed to be over, you're only going into like the second section.
Yeah. Literally,
So
actually.
it is so well done. I love the length of this coaster. All of the elements are very, very well profiled. There's not a bad moment on this ride, which
Mm-mm.
in 6,000 feet of track, that's hard to do. That is
Yes.
very hard to do, not to make a bad part of this roller coaster. And it was just absolutely wild, out of control experience. I feel like I've been talking for 45 minutes, so it's your turn. But we can't talk.
uh
We can't say enough about this thing, man. It
no.
was. Oh man, I want to go back. We want to go back tomorrow. I don't need to go to work.
If I didn't have to go to work, I totally actually
I don't
would.
need to ride the rack. I could go ride this some more.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you come around the bend to get on this roller coaster, you end up passing under like one of the final turns, the final turn for this ride. And like every single time we just see it come screaming around this corner. Like you go so fast around it. And every single time I'd be like, oh my God. And Gabe would be like, Sam, that's the end of the ride. And I was like, cheese and crackers. Oh, he's right. We literally cannot say enough about this ride, but there's one other ride we really want to get into because we believe it's not talked about enough, and it's at the same park. So I want to start talking about the legend. Can we talk about the
Oh, did I
legend?
talk about the voyage enough? Did I take some
I
of your time? That's my bad. Honestly.
So the legend is, I would not be hesitant to say that it is like the voyage basically had a baby, and this is what it
See,
is.
but
Which,
it's not even the same ride experience as the voyage. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
okay, so hold on, just real quick. This is a Custom Coasters International roller coaster,
hmm
a top height of 99 feet, a top drop height of 113 feet. So the drop is taller than the actual height of the roller coaster. Top speed of around 60 miles per hour. Multiple tunnels, a helix, a double down. Apparently, somewhere was in there was a double. I missed that,
I missed
and
that too.
just a very different, completely different. Not even any. Okay, here's the thing: wooden roller coasters usually are very similar, right?
Yeah,
All
they've got
three
their
wooden
1-2 punch that they're all used to
yes,
using, kind of.
all three wooden coasters at this park are completely different. Like completely, not even remotely similar. And I know Sam
Yeah,
wants to say this feels like the Voyage. Size wise, yes. Ride experience, and no.
no.
All right, go ahead, take it away. I've talked enough. I'll shut up.
You're fine. So the thing with the legend, I think, is so the voyage feels more terrainy coaster, especially with the second half of that coaster. Obviously, the first half is just airtime focused, but this thing is just like laterals the entire time, but somehow also mixes in like quick pops of ejector, and it also like like the with the voyage you really feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere. This ride actually takes you basically through the middle of the water park, which is really
Yeah,
interesting.
that I don't. The planning department at this park also needs a raise.
The
Some
guy
of the
doing the math,
the guy
like,
doing the math, he also needs a raise at this park because they're doing some wild stuff. That is for
oh
sure.
my gosh, yes. So I this also has a really good drop, but the thing is that it has a slightly curved drop. So you get like a couple seconds of like that little bit of floater, but then you come whipped down around to the side. So that gives you some really good laterals. And it just this thing was crazy too. We wrote it and we're just like, okay, it was really funny because here's what we did at the park is we hit the Raven first because it's right by the entrance. And so we hit that and we're like, this is the worst wooden coaster here.
And it was
What?
great. This was
And it
awesome. We were having a great time. Like,
So then we went over and we rode this, the Legend, and we just like got hit in the face with all the laterals and the quick pops of air time and just it screaming through the freaking the water park and just like the crazy turns that it take, and it's also super well paced and it keeps you guessing the entire time. It is short and sweet and to the point, and it's fabulous. And we're just like, and the voyage is still better. Like, what? It was absolutely crazy, and it was so much fun to ride. And the other thing I think we want to talk about, because we want to mention this with the voyage too, is you can tell how well they take
oh,
care of these wooden
100%. Even
coasters.
The Raven had some rough spots, I'm not going to lie. But the Raven's
Yeah.
also the oldest coaster there.
Yeah.
And even that had very good, very smooth sections. There was probably, I think the last turn was probably, or the last two turns were probably the worst. So
Hmm.
hopefully they can get to that in the next couple of years and smooth that out. That being said, it is the oldest coaster there. So it's doing very, very good for itself, considering its age.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes.
these two massive Woodies, the Legend and the Voyage, were very well taken care of. And you can feel that in the ride experience. And I have heard people in the past say the Voyage is kind of rough. It is a gravity group, so
Yeah.
that's not surprising considering our experience with Hades 360. But I would not call any of the wooden coasters at this park rough to the point
Yeah.
like we rode rough. Wild or Screaming Eagle was rough. And none of these
Yes.
coasters were anywhere close to the same level that Screaming Eagle was. And in fact, we rode the Legend multiple times. We re-rode the Voyage multiple times. We re-rode the Raven multiple times
Yes.
without fail. Like the Screaming Eagle, we didn't want to ride a second time at all in the same day. So
Yeah. We
that's
didn't
a
even consider
and
it.
Hades 360 was always like you rode it once, you went down, you got an ice cream, you came back, rode it a second time, went down to the water park for a little while, came back, rode it for the third time, then you're done. So like,
Yeah.
but these coasters are well and above being considered rough in my opinion, and in fact, you can feel the investment that they put into these roller coasters every off season to keep them running at tip top shape.
Yes. Very much so. What time are we at? I don't even know.
We're about 52 minutes in.
Okay. Do we want to talk about the Raven real quick?
Yeah,
So
I
we can
just
fit it
wanted
in
to touch
here.
on the Legend a little bit myself as well. The biggest thing with the Legend, I've been saying that all day. It's great.
Yep.
Anyway, it is not an airtime focused roller coaster. It is a
No.
very, very lateral focused, very, very left and right focused roller coaster, and that's what makes it feel so different. That being said, if you take the Legend out of this roller coaster lineup and plop it in a Six Flags Great America lineup, this could be the number one, number two coaster at a Great America. This could be a
Yeah.
number one coaster at a Dollywood. This could be a number one coaster at a lot of different parks. I'm saying argumentatively. Obviously, if you physically actually do this, Lightning Rod's probably just a little bit better. If you take it to Great America, obviously Goliath's my favorite there. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying this coaster could be a number one coaster at a lot of different theme parks, especially the smaller ones. And I think
Yes.
and that's one thing I said as we were leaving is I'm like, the Legend does not get talked about enough of how good of a ride experience is. I think the problem is not everybody enjoys laterals.
Yeah.
It is a little bit more of an aggressive force, especially the way the Legend applicates that force onto you repetitively,
Yes.
sustained.
Something, oh my God, something I totally forgot about. We could feel the upstop
Yeah.
wheels in corners. That's
Yes.
not what upstop wheels are designed
No,
for.
not on the airtime moments. You could hear the train hitting the upstop wheels in the turns. And
Yes.
I think that is just an insane thing to talk about. And just the Legend is underrated. Very, very
Yes.
underrated. Also a potentially top 15 roller coaster for us. Maybe not quite. Maybe top 20. But like I'm running
Still.
out of top 20s, man. I'm running out of spots. I don't know what I'm
I
gonna do with all these
know.
coasters.
Oh my
One of
gosh.
these
I'm like,
days we're gonna have to sit down like after our big 2025 roller coaster extravaganza trip. Once we have like, because I'm gonna break 200 credits on that trip. Like I'm gonna have
mhm.
200 credits. I think we need to expand to a top 20 and just really look and try to pick out the best 20 coasters that we have ridden. We'll do it this. I'll tell you what. Season 3, we're gonna do a top 20 comparison episode. Is what we'll do. We'll
Okay.
not talk
That
about it
sounds
at all,
Yep.
and we'll just make our top 20s and bring them and see what we got. Just do a little
Okay.
45-minute, hour-long special, just talking about 20 different roller coasters for me and 20 different coasters for you. Nothing in depth, just to look at top 20s and compare them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think that sounds like a good idea.
that being said, the Legend, we need to talk about this coaster more, and it's another reason why Holiday World is so freaking fantastic. But that being said,
Oh, yeah.
you can talk about the Raven real quick, and then we gotta go.
Okay. So the Raven is another CCI roller coaster. It was built in 1995. And now something me and Gabe found out actually as we were walking out is this is an ACE historical landmark.
Yes.
And it's actually really cool for why it's an ACE historical landmark. It's basically in a time when coasters were trying to be the biggest, baddest things on the planet.
In 1995, you're talking about the peak of the coaster wars, like
Yes.
trying to build the biggest, baddest, tallest, fastest ride possible, whether it's wood or steel. That's what 1995 really, really was the peak of the coaster wars.
Yeah. So with the building of this ride, a more mid-sized wooden roller coaster at a smaller park, because this guy stands at 80 feet, it's got a drop of 85 feet, and only a track
The
length of
second,
about
third, fourth drop.
yeah. And it's only got a track length of 2,800 feet. Now I say only in the most sparing way because this thing is actually a great ride for the length and height that it is. And so basically as an ACE historical landmark, it was proving to these smaller parks that you can go for a mid-sized Woody and still have an exceptional ride experience that a lot of your park goers are going to love. So that's really cool for us historically because we're just like, well, that's really cool because we really do love a lot of these mid-tier wooden roller coasters, especially being Woody lovers. And then to talk about the Raven itself, this was another whole different ride experience, like Gabe was saying. And one thing that we did notice about this one, it is the most scenic of all
Yeah,
the roller coasters.
you would have thought it was the Voyage or even maybe the Legend, but because of where both those coasters are situated, so the Legend interacts a lot with the water park, which makes it
Mm-hmm.
feel not as isolated. And
Yep.
the Voyage feels isolated too, but you do run underneath Thunderbird. Now, I think maybe if Thunderbird wasn't there anymore, it'd probably feel a little bit more isolated from the park. And then obviously the back half, as you're returning, you go by a lot of other stuff and the drink station and stuff like that. And it still feels like it's in the park, where the Raven felt like you left the park. Like you basically go down that first drop and you have probably one or two more elements where you can see the parking lot. And then after that, you were very wooded, very secluded. You have the turn down by the lake. And it just was a very scenic, very beautiful scenery on this roller coaster. You know, I guess we're not talking about the coaster itself at this point, but just the area of the park. The other thing too is being built in 1995 and being the oldest, a lot of it has regrown around the roller coaster, creating
Yes.
almost like a tunneling effect just with the trees itself. And it gave vibes of like, hey, this is just going to be for us, right? But like driving down the road in a motorcycle where the tree canopy is just completely overgrown the road, and you just feel like you're driving down a tree of tunnels. Or tree of tunnels. Wow. A tunnel of trees.
I just agreed with you. It didn't even register in my brain.
It feels like you're driving a vehicle down a road with the canopy over the top of you, but in a roller coaster form. And that was a very neat effect that I've, again, never really felt on a roller coaster for the entire ride experience. Sometimes you get it in sections, but not necessarily for the whole experience. And that's really what the Raven did for us.
I think one other thing we have to talk about with the Raven is the first drop on this is pretty decent, but it's the like second big drop, we call it. We think that's the one that's 85 feet because it is the best airtime moment on
Oh,
this entire
yeah,
roller
for
coaster.
sure.
It's really surprising because a lot of the times on Woodies, especially traditional Woodies, you expect that first drop to be the best airtime on the entire ride.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to get a decent first drop and then have some elements, and you
Well,
have the sweeping turn by the lake, and then you have a couple more elements, and then you come up and over and then drop down into like really close to the ground. And so that's when you get your best dose of airtime. And so it's really neat to just have it basically in the middle of this roller coaster.
yeah, and I think that really circles back to how different all three of these wooden roller coasters really are. Where
Mm-hmm.
the Raven felt maybe the closest to a traditional Woody, but
Mm-hmm.
even saying that is a stretch compared to like
Yes.
an actual traditional wooden roller coaster. Just at the end of the day, the Raven, like we said, was probably, we're going to call it the number 4 coaster. I thought Thunderbird was a little bit better, and then obviously
Yeah.
the Legend and the Voyage. But that being said, it is a solid number 4 roller coaster. I think,
Oh,
potential top 50, maybe. I mean,
yeah.
if you really wanted to get down to the nitty gritty of it. And one of the better wooden roller coasters we've been on for its size, for sure.
Yes. Absolutely. Agree with that.
That being said, here, we gotta wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
um, one
Running over
thing,
a little bit.
one thing I wanted to say about Holiday World in general. So we talked about Six Flags St. Louis not being a park that you're gonna go out of your way to visit.
Yeah.
Holiday World needs to be a park you go out of your way to visit. I know it sounds like a
Yes.
lot, but this overall park experience, and we didn't even touch the water park at all. Like, if you guys are into
No.
water parks too, you're listening to our podcast, that's totally cool. But, like, we didn't even touch that section of the park. And we're very fulfilled throughout an entire roller coastering day at this park with
Yes.
only 5 rides. Just a very, very, very good park. A must visit park for all 3 of the Woodies that are here. Even Thunderbird. I mean, we didn't even talk about that ride. And it's a launched B&M wing coaster with multiple immersions and a very, very good near miss element at the end of the ride. One of the better wing coasters we've been on. And we didn't even
Mhm.
talk about it in this episode. So, like,
Exactly.
that goes to show how well done this park really is. Good gravy. If if you have younger children, even if you're an adult, I mean, it was great for us. We had a great time. We only rode it once, but like we still had a lot of fun riding it.
Oh yeah. We
Just
talk about the B&M clamshell being the most comfortable thing on the planet. That Good Gravy was a close
Oh,
second.
for sure. Like, just this park from start to finish, from the moment we walked into it to the moment we walked out of it, we did not have a bad moment. And
No.
that's hard to say. That is
Yes.
truly hard to say, especially in an 8, 9, 10 hour period being at an amusement park. We didn't have a single bad moment while we were here.
Agreed.
And I'm gonna give Holiday World, if we're giving Six Flags St. Louis B minus, we're giving Holiday World an A plus plus. Like, just,
Yeah.
we had a great
Absolutely.
time at Holiday World, and you guys need to get out to this park. It really is. If you are within 500 miles of this park, you need to be visiting it tomorrow. Like, come on,
Yes.
guys, what are we doing?
Absolutely.
But
100% agree. So, coming to the end of this Trip Talks episode, I do want to get into our schedule a little bit because we did rearrange slightly to
yeah, of
put this
course,
episode in.
leave it to us.
I know. So, after this, we are coming to the end of our season. So, we have 3 episodes left. We're going to do episode 9, which is our most anticipated coaster of the 2025 trip. Then we're going to do our randomly selected battle. And then our last final season finale episode will be our Coasters 101 episode on the namesake of our podcast, The Coaster Wars. So I will probably update with an actual date that that's coming out, but that is our schedule. We have 3 episodes left. So
For sure.
the other thing, yeah, I'm not really, but we'll go with it. Uh, the other thing I do want to tease, and I think I forgot to put it in the description of our last episode, so I have to remember to put it into this one. Now that we just went to 2 parks, we have some more TikToks up. So our TikTok is Coaster Wars PC for podcast. So go ahead and check that out because we do have some more videos up now.
For sure. And definitely stay tuned to that because we are going to be visiting, was it 11, 12? I don't know. It's too many parks on our roller coaster extravaganza trip. That also includes multiple new for 2025 roller coasters. That is going to be must watch content. Not really. I mean, honestly, but like, please,
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
you be doing us a favor. Please watch it.
Exactly. We're kind of begging here.
Yeah. Anyway, but if you want to follow us right now, we're kind of sticking to the TikTok for videos and the Instagram for photos. Follow those social medias. Sam knows what they are. And if you want to stay in contact or at least follow us on our roller coastering adventures this summer, that is the place to find us once our podcast season 2 is done and over with. So,
Yes.
and that will also be the location to find out when season 3 will start. We will be announcing them. We'll probably have an end date when we record our final episode. Knowing us, we probably won't. So
Honestly.
if we do not have a return date, because we will be returning after this season, as long as neither of us die. I mean, knock on wood, right? Well, geez, now I'm getting grim. But
jinx.
My point is we will post on that social media platforms that we are mentioning to let you guys know when we are coming back, what we have in store for the future, any changes, anything that is going on where maybe we would have to delay coming back, whatever, for whatever reason. That is the place to follow us while we are not recording our podcasts.
Yes. So with that, everybody, thank you for listening and join us next week for our most anticipated coaster of our 2025 Coaster Extravaganza.
And we hope you all have a great day.